Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Welcome to episode 187 of Sports Management Podcast. Today's guest is Mike Buckley, co-owner and CEO of the United States SailGP team. We spoke about being an owner, CEO, and athlete simultaneously, if being a strategist is beneficial in business, growing up poor but choosing sailing, why he considered himself an outsider, how to build a winning team, and much more. Mike Buckley, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Hey, Marcus. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show. You are the co-owner and CEO of US SailGP team and also a sailor yourself, two-time world champion. So can you tell us a little bit about your role and what you're doing at SailGP?
Yeah, so November 2023, Ryan McKillen and I put a group together to buy the US team from Larry Ellison. It's been a pretty fast-moving year and a half, as you can imagine. We bought the team halfway through an active season, which jumped straight into the deep end, and there wasn't a whole lot of time to make a plan. Plan was how are we going to get through tomorrow. But I think that was actually really good because we were able to, we didn't have to think a lot. We just had to take action and figure out what worked and figure out, what didn't. So excited to get into the off season last summer and then, get going here in the 2025 season.
Amazing. So I have covered SailGP a little bit before, but if there are some new listeners, just can you give some background of what is SailGP and a little bit the history of SailGP?
Yeah, so SailGP was founded by Larry Ellison and Russell Coutts with the idea to bring sailing closer to the fans and the fans closer to sailing. So racing high-speed catamarans that go 50, 60 miles an hour right off of, iconic city fronts around the world with kind of one main goal, make it commercially sustainable, right? So, getting more and more people to watch it, creating a great TV product, an awesome fan experience, and they've done that in 5 short years. The TV numbers are insane. We have a long way to go, but kind of nipping at some of the mainstream sports that you can turn on cable TV and watch on a Saturday or Sunday. You can do the same thing here in the United States and over 200 markets around the world. So it's just been incredible to see what's happened the last few years, and we feel pretty lucky to be part of it now.
Yeah. So if I say it's like Formula One on water, am I way off, or is that a little bit what you're aiming for?
Yeah, I think that's become a really common phrase, and I think that's an incredible compliment to SailGP. But I also think SailGP stands on its own 2 feet now. Before you were constantly trying to make comparisons to draw those parallels to make some traction. And, now I think, we're really focused on ourselves and I think the game day experience and the TV product is worthy. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's the closest thing. I like to say that SailGP is kind of F1 and maybe golf, had a baby, and that was SailGP. It's very similar demographic. There's a lot of tradition in sailing. Sailing's been around forever, but it's got that racing, that authentic racing feel like Formula One. So yeah, I think it's pretty unique.
Definitely. And you mentioned commercializing it, getting it to the people. F1, if we compared to F1 again, they had a Drive to Survive series. So what are some strategies or tactics that SailGP has in order to commercialize and be more getting the awareness out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity is to tell the stories of our people, right? As a fan of sport and a fan of other athletes, you become entrenched in a person's career that maybe you'll never meet in your life. More than likely, you'll never get to meet these star athletes. But you jump off the couch and fist pump when they win. You cry when they lose, right? You just become, they're almost an extension of your family. But again, you've never met them. I think what we saw with Drive to Survive is, at least here in America, we fell in love with Daniel Ricciardo's smile and his positive outlook on just life and his laugh. And we fell in love with Max Verstappen's just killer instinct and Lewis's huge goals on and off the track. And I think that that's what we're missing. We have a lot of those same personalities in our ecosystem, but we haven't told those stories about people in the sport of sailing since the 80s and 90s. So I think that's a huge opportunity for all the teams and the league together to educate the average fan who we are and what makes us tick, and whether fans love you or hate you, they're still a fan, and we'd obviously rather them love us. But if they're engaged, that's a good thing for all of us.
Yeah. So you mentioned, you said before if F1 and golf had a baby, and I think that was a really good explanation, because the golf, obviously it's outdoors and it's a bigger track than a Formula One track that you're sailing. So how are you working to getting the best consumer experience for both on TV, but also the people who are watching it live?
Yeah, I mean, we just got back a month ago from Auckland, and I'll tell you what, it was like nothing I've ever seen before. We had 25,000 people in grandstands that paid for tickets. We have really premium hospitality, which is called the Adrenaline Lounge, which is an invite only space, very similar to the Paddock Club of F1. You have to be either an owner, invited by an owner, or a partner of one of the teams or the league. So it's a very exclusive experience. Some of it's catered by Nobu or Thomas Keller or Tao Group, really, really premium. But Auckland was the first place where you couldn't go out to dinner without somebody coming up to your table and asking for a photo, asking, about the race tomorrow, saying good luck, or telling us, that they were rooting for the Kiwis, or whatever it may be, and that was really cool to see. That was the pinnacle of SailGP to date, in my opinion. The racing was right off the city. The imagery of the boats and the city in the background and the fans was just something that I think most of the world has never really imagined. And so that gives, as an American and somebody who wants to grow the US market, obviously I want to grow the global market as well, but the US is kind of our first focus, being able to take, that snapshot of what we just saw, and know that that's where we need to get to in the US. And if we get there, the sky's the limit.
Definitely. So talking about growth, how's that been like? Maybe we can focus on SailGP US then, that you were closer on. So how's the growth been like in the past couple of years, and what do you estimate for the future?
Yeah, well, I think it's two-part, right? I think the league growth has been well beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Obviously, the founders are incredibly ambitious people that have huge goals, and they're dreamers and they're doers and they're boundary breakers. But I think if you asked them 5 years ago if there'd be 12 teams and valuations soaring through the roof, and 19 million viewers on TV, I think they probably would have said, not yet. But that's where we are, and that's due to a lot of great people working really hard. For our team, we bought the team a little over a year ago. We've had some nice commercial growth. We brought on a new partner, Tommy Hilfiger, Apex Group, and a few others. So that's been great to see the reaction from kind of the commercial side of things. A lot of big brands want to have conversations about what we're doing. We're about to bring on a couple more partners as we speak. On the water, our performance has been up and down. We've had 2 podiums in 11 races. We're really proud of those 2 podiums. But we've also had some tough races. We crashed out of Bermuda and Sydney on practice days, which is excuse me, which is unacceptable. But it happens when you're pushing. And so, trying to take our bad races and kind of bring them into the middle. And once we're able to do that, we don't have to take a huge step. We have to take a small step. I think that's when things really start to come together, both from a performance on and off the water standpoint.
So what's the vision for the team? I mean, you mentioned 2 out of 11 victories now. Is that how you like measure success in terms of victories? Obviously, it's a sport, it's a competitive sport, but are there any other metrics that you can see for as the vision for the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really easy to focus on, winning a race, right? That's a metric that's really obvious. We want to win. Our goal is to win the Rolex SailGP championship in the next few years. We also want to win off the water, and that's something we think we can do more immediate. Inspiring people to chase their dreams, opening doors to new people to get into our sport, and introducing new people to the ocean and Mother Nature. There's millions of people in the world that have never actually even seen the ocean. So that's something that's not lost on us. We want to be, in a, top of the list commercially, right? We want to have the best partners. We want to have the most partners. So those are our goals over the next few years. And, I think at the end of the day, we want to change the sport of sailing. We want to bring the mainstream, back into it and really put it on the map.
That's a big ambition, big goal.
Yeah. It is, and but if your goals are small and if your goals are personal, um, it's a lot harder to get people behind it when the goal is and the mission is much bigger than one person. It makes the tough days worth it, because it's got to be fun even when you're getting your butt kicked, because that's what gets you out of bed in the morning to go to the gym, to get on the next phone call, to watch game tape, to get on the airplane. You got to love what you do, and you got to love even the bad, and I think that's what defines the true competitors that, we all know their names long after their careers are over.
Obviously, you love what you do because we mentioned the co-owner, the CEO, but you're also on the team. So how do you balance these different roles, the more athlete side with the business side?
Yeah, I think it stems with that. Yeah, that love. It's certainly my life isn't normal. I don't think everything I've ever done is really probably not all that normal. But I wanted to come in and try to set a culture that I believed in on and off the water. This is new to a lot of people on our team, right? How you talk to sponsors, how you engage with fans, how you speak to the media, how you deal with a bad day, how you do all of this, right? That's the total package. And so I said right from the start, my plan was not to sail for very long. I wasn't a long-term solution. I'm at the end of my racing career. But Taylor and I have a long history together. We have great trust in each other. Taylor's our driver. So didn't want to have him create a new relationship with a strategist while he was learning to drive an F50. I mean, that was kind of, the thesis behind it. But I used to find myself coming home from a race before SailGP and on Sunday night or Monday morning, whether I won or I got my butt kicked, I felt a bit empty during the week. And it took me probably 10 years to figure out that I just missed competing. I didn't have that thing, right? I didn't wake up to go out on the water and race. I was sitting on my couch watching ESPN. This allows me on Monday morning to be straight back in the competition. And that competition is building our business and, bringing on more commercial partners and, engaging fans and growing our audience. So for me, it really allows me to, do what I love 24/7. I wish there were more hours in the day. My days, on site at a race are pretty crazy, but I think I'll rest at the end of my career. Right now, it's full steam ahead.
That's really interesting. And you mentioned you're a strategist. So how is that something that can be helpful in business? Are you, in your strategic business planning or anything like that, that you have that type of mindset?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love the Dana White quote, and I won't I would botch it if I said it anyway, and it's riddled with F bombs, so I wouldn't say it on here anyway. But he basically talks about a lot of people that own their own business. You get to make your own hours, and it's this and that. And the reality is when you own your own business, you're getting punched every single day with a new problem. And yeah, I think sailing is the same thing, right? You can't control Mother Nature. She will always beat you. The best you can do is tie, and if you tie with her, you've probably won the race, right? And so, for us, when we're racing, the wind is constantly changing. The other boats you're racing against are always doing something that's a bit unpredictable, and you've got to make real time decisions. So at 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour. So in business, I think there's really no better lesson than what we learn on the water. And when I come into the office on Monday morning, and your email is full of a lot of exciting things and a lot of problems, and you got to solve them, and you got to solve them quickly. So yeah, I think sailing is one of those kind of few sports where I think that the crossover with leadership and decision making is directly applicable to the real world. I don't know which is harder, running a business or sailing. I guess it's a tie.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing both, so you should know, right?
Yeah, it's they both have their own personalities, two totally different beasts, but a lot of the same, a lot of the same problems, and a lot of the same solutions, work on both sides. Good communication, right? Hard work, preparation. When you're prepared, you're typically confident. When you're confident, you usually communicate well, right? And I think that works across both sport and business.
And I mean, as you say, preparation and your schedule, you said there is not enough hours, but you need to, obviously, when you're doing both here, to plan your day and to schedule everything to have the time to do both sides.
Yeah, I got new gray hairs on my beard, and I got darker circles than ever under my eyes. But yeah, I feel my mind and my heart feel younger than I've ever felt, and I think that's what's important.
Yeah, definitely. But you mentioned like, yeah, this was you mentioned you're on the end of your career. So how do you look at I'm the sailing career then I refer to. So how do you look at that day when you eventually retire from the athlete side and move in 100% on the business side?
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of made peace with the fact that I I I really never. Maybe I did at first. I used to think a lot about trophies, but for me now, the real trophy isn't something that sits on your shelf and collects dust. The real trophy is, can can we inspire a country to get behind what we're doing and open new doors to sailing. So again, I think it goes back to, if you love what you do, it'll work out. So yeah, I mean, will it be a bittersweet day when I step off for the final time? Yeah, sure. But I think that was always something that I saw on the horizon. Was I wanted to be more than an athlete, so that I had a career after racing that was still attached to it.
Yeah, I mean, at least you know what you will do, right? A lot of athletes, they stop and then they don't know what they will do.
Yeah,
You have the purpose and you can stay in the sport and work in the sport that you love still, but from a different angle.
exactly.
I'm interested in how your journey started. I mean, now you're the CEO, co-owner, you're sailing, end of that career, but how did it all start? Like, when did you first, get into sailing, and how has your journey been up to where we are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't have probably the most traditional entry into the sport. I grew up with a single mom that worked three jobs. I never met my dad. We were poor. I didn't grow up, kind of as a real little kid. hanging around yacht clubs. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I grew up playing sports, and I got to go to a private boarding school with what I thought was going to be my athletic career, maybe a hockey player or football player. But I was average at best. When I got to high school, and that high school happened to have a great sailing team, and I kind of dipped my toe in it and realized that if I applied the same, kind of work ethic that and commitment that I did with hockey on in sailing, which most of the kids in sailing, it was just kind of their hobby. If I applied that, just that relentless competitor side to the sailing, that could be, my ticket to an education and maybe a career after. So that's kind of exactly what happened, and I fell in love with it, and sailing showed me the world. So that's one of the reasons I want to make sure I'm giving back. I've traveled all over racing for the last 15 years, 20 years. But yeah, I didn't come through the normal paths, and I've probably always been an outsider, and probably still am. And that's probably why I look at it, through a very different lens than most.
In what way would you consider yourself an outsider?
Well, just I'm not the traditional sailor, right? With the navy blue blazer and the gold buttons and khaki pants, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just it's I I have different interests. Sailing is something that I do and something that I love, but it's not who I am. And it gives me a vehicle to compete, and I love nothing more than being out on the water racing a sailboat. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. But yeah, I think I look at it as a sport, and I look at it no differently as basketball or football or anything. And yeah, I think that's kind of a pretty unique way of looking at it. I think if you asked most sailors, what they are, they tell you they're a sailor. And yeah, I think it's we're not too far off, but little different lens.
Yeah, I understand. It's interesting since you said like if you are different than an outsider from that you chose like hockey and sailing. It's not the cheapest sport. I'm in the hockey business myself and also played, and like yourself said, like average as best, I would say. But now you can work in it from a different angle. But it's interesting choices of sports if you like grew up the way that you described.
Yeah, I mean, I always remember, that there were kids that had a lot more money. They got to do, a lot of those elite camps, right? And they got to do travel hockey, and I was doing rec hockey. And listen, there were plenty of kids that made it out of rec hockey that went on to play in the league. But it was certainly, I would imagine, an easier path for the kids that got to go and buy extra ice time, or go and be coached by the best coaches. And but yeah, hockey, I grew up in New England and in Boston, and hockey's a big thing up there. And I got into it at a young age. I used to get out on the ponds and the cranberry bogs, and I just loved to skate, and I'd be out there until usually would get out there before the ice was even ready to be skated on. I was telling my wife the other day, because we were skiing, and I took my little ones skating for the first time, and the ice was cracking underneath us a little bit, and it brought me back to my childhood. I mean, I've fallen through the ice so many times as a kid. We used to go out when it was like an inch thick. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that, I definitely remember how hard it was for my mom to kind of figure it all out. Right. I mean, she was always working for me, at the end of the day. And so, yeah, I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, and why, on the tough days, I, kind of block the noise and figure it out, but yeah, I mean, sailing's more expensive than hockey, and that's something we're never necessarily going to change it, right? It's always going to, you have to have a boat. You have to live near the water. There's always going to be barriers. But there's more and more, like public sailing courses and foundations. We're partnered with Hudson River Community Sailing. They put 200 underserved youth through a sailing program here in New York City. And most of those kids go on to four-year colleges, right, and come from really tough backgrounds. So that's part of the goal, right? Break those barriers so it shouldn't have to be this hard, basically.
No, it's really interesting to hear about your background, and it sounds like your mom set a good example for you. They're like working 3 jobs, and now, I mean, you could argue that you're working at least 2 jobs right now. So, having that determination and hard work seems to be something that, you might have picked up from her, perhaps.
Yeah, of course, no doubt. I've always, again, I go back to, the love, right? If you're doing it for something that's bigger than yourself, it's a lot easier to work hard. If it's just about you, it's not that fulfilling.
No, of course. Do you have any type of motto or like something that you live for or a saying, something along those lines, or?
I like that. I like the kind of the never give up, fall down, get back up, that sort of stuff. I don't know exactly the quote. I read it somewhere, but it was like a winner is a loser that tried one more time. I like that sort of stuff. I love the American dream thing. These stories of, people telling when Jeff Bezos showed up with his minivan and his books, people told him he was an idiot. I love that sort of stuff. Right. That's that's the stuff that gets me excited. The underdog stories. I was hoping my Team USA boys were going to take down Canada last night in the hockey, but they put in a valiant effort, but not quite the miracle on ice we had envisioned.
No, what a crazy tournament that was. As a
Yeah,
sidebar here, but I
yeah,
was thinking when they started, what type of is this gonna be? Is it gonna be like the people who can still make it in the playoffs this year? Are they gonna play on reserve? And they just went guns blazing, all of them, and there were fights and they
yeah,
were all over the place.
yeah. No, it was, just another example of the power of sports, right? And the power of sports and storytelling, right? I mean, people will be talking about that, fight between Team USA and Canada for forever. That was not. I don't condone fighting, but like it was epic. Are you kidding me? So yeah,
Thinking back of your career, has there been any bumps on the road? And if so, how did you overcome them?
yeah. I mean, there are bumps every day. I think there's been bumps. There's been earthquakes. There's been anything, right? And I think that yeah, it goes back to, racing a sailboat. There's bumps every day you go out there and in each race and you've got to navigate yourself, through them, around them, over them, whatever. But yeah, I mean, you just you never know what's coming next. And I think back to that, kind of my Dana White reference, right? I mean, it's every single day there's a bump and you know you hope there's not a ton of them every day, but I mean what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and yeah, we figure out how to address them as they come.
On the Dana White topic, I think he said something like when they bought the UFC, the first like 3-4 years, there was he said it was fighting for their life like every single day, and no one wanted them because it was barbaric and I mean,
Yeah,
compared to what it is now, that's amazing.
yeah, and again, I think the people that we all remember their names, long after their careers or whatever, those are the people that went through the hard times, to win, right? And whether it's Dana White or Bezos or Brady, Tom Brady was a 6th round draft choice, 4th string quarterback, 7-time Super Bowl winner, right? I mean, I think if you don't have the beginning of that story, it's probably not as impactful to talk about. It's the spread. It's that it's the when people doubt you and then you win. Yeah, those are the epic wins.
How do you want to be remembered, or does that matter to you in any way?
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't really matter to me. I think what what I really care about again is if if we inspired a bunch of people to chase their dreams, whether whether I'm thought of in that same light or not doesn't matter to me as long as that's the outcome. Nobody wants to be disliked or anything like that, but uh, you know, that's my biggest goal, right? Are you inspiring people to go be the next Jeff Bezos or be the next best, violin player or race car driver or sailor or whatever. That's kind of what the message that I really enjoy telling and hopefully, by doing it is better than telling it.
Yeah, showing an example. So a lot of people listening are early in their careers or maybe they are studying, want to get into the sports industry. What would be some advice you have for these people with aspirations to work in sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I was just telling one of my wife's young cousins, like again, if you want to really make an impact, and that you don't have to want to do that. Like that's okay to just go to work 9 to 5. Like you define success, right, for the individual, not others. But if you really want to make an impact, find something you love. Back to all the bumps and bruises, right? If you don't love it, you quit during the bumps and the bruises. So I think my first advice is, if you want to be impact, make an impact, you've got to find something you love. And, if those two things exist, don't take no for an answer. There's always a way to get in, yeah, be relentless at chasing your dreams. Because yeah, sport is so fun to work in, but it's also really hard to get into it. So, I'm sure a lot of people that try are told no. Hey, we're not hiring. You can't do this. You're too young. You don't have experience. You don't have this. If you want to make an impact and you love it, figure it out. And you will eventually when the time's right.
I mean, now you're, as the CEO and co-owner, you're building your team. Let's focus on the management side then, but like you're building the SailGP team. What are some qualities that you're looking for? I mean, you mentioned relentless, but if someone is applying for a job for you, what are some qualities you like in this person?
Yeah, I mean, I think on a sailboat, we really, and this was taught to me when I first became a professional, like this whole like do your job mentality, right? If you have 10 people on a boat and everybody is doing each other's jobs, it becomes pretty close to impossible to figure out who's doing their job well and who's doing their job poorly, right? Because if you and I have two different jobs and I keep doing yours, when management looks in from here, they can't really figure out, is Mike doing a good job or Marcus? Like who actually runs this podcast? Oh well, they're kind of running it together. That's a really hard way to improve. So try to hire people that can be focused on their job first. We always want to have a collaborative environment, but you gotta. We're under resourced, right? Like one of the great parts about SailGP is we have a $10 million a year spend cap. Which is mandated for all the teams, 14 races around the world, having, a commercial team, a marketing team, a comms team. Uh, it's hard to run a business on, under $10 million. So you need people that are, scrappy and willing to wear a bunch of different hats. And, we don't have the time to fully manage all these people. They've got to be really on top of on their game. I think on the sailing side, looking for people that it's really easy to support your teammates when you win. Really easy to high five and nice job. It's really hard when you're not winning. And so getting people that, have your back on the bad days, that's how you build the culture. And when you have that culture, that's usually when you get that confidence, that you take that step towards winning.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I like that. So if someone wants to read up more, maybe look for, work openings or read up more on SailGP, where can they do that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know the league is constantly growing and has a lot of job opportunities. So if you're interested in traveling the world, there's probably some opportunity for you in SailGP. All the teams are growing. There's 12 teams in 12 different countries. So this, there's probably a job in there for somebody. So can check out sailgp.com or LinkedIn, or you can check out our social media handles at the team side, US SailGP team, or mine, which is just my last name, Buckley.
Awesome. Anything that I haven't asked you yet that you want to mention?
No, I think one thing you were going to ask me is who I was going to recommend as your next guest.
Yes.
And I was thinking it would be good to get another team from the Avenue Capital Sports portfolio, which is one of the TGL teams, the Bay Golf Club, which is owned by Avenue and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Andre Iguodala. Their CEO, Ned Watkins, he's a real star and building out TGL, and I think he'd be a great guest for you.
That would be fantastic. Hope I can make that happen.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Well, thanks, Marcus. Yeah, amazing. Stay warm.
Will do. You too. Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportmpodcast.